Welcome to the captivating realm of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss any of our exciting new stories. Enjoy the journey.
The humans reached the battlefield, unleashing a relentless fury that only they could wield, tearing into the alien ranks with cold precision. Just moments earlier, the Creek fleet had been on the verge of complete destruction at the hands of the merciless Zonians. Dozens of Creek ships, once proud symbols of their might, were being blasted into ruins by the unceasing onslaught, their wreckage drifting and spilling debris and bodies into space. Captain Zarek clung to his command console, grim-faced as damage reports streamed in, weapons systems offline, shields failing, hull breaches on every deck. Outgunned and outmatched, they were running out of options, as Zarek opened his mouth to call for a full retreat. Hoping to salvage whatever was left of his battered fleet, a new voice broke through the comms. "This is Captain Jason Reeves of the United Earth ship Defiant. We've received your distress call and reinforcements are on the way. Hold your position." A massive human dreadnought dropped out of warp, its cannons blazing as it engaged the Zonian forces. Perhaps today would not be the day the Creek fell after all, not with the human fighters leveling the odds. Meanwhile, Emperor Zarthan reclined in his command throne, a smug smile on his scaled face as he watched the Creek fleet break apart under his plasma barrage. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the chance to seize Creek territory had finally arrived. He had prepared for this day meticulously. Every last credit from the Zorgan treasury had fueled the Imperial war machine. His best scientists had toiled to perfect shielding technology, creating defenses nearly impervious to anything but a supernova. Weapons factories had churned out missiles capable of splitting continents, and shipyards had produced gargantuan vessels that could blot out the stars. Watching the destruction unfold on his viewscreen, Zarthan took satisfaction in each Creek cruiser disintegrating into metal shards. Their counterfire was meaningless against the Zonian defenses. It was like insects trying to resist a furnace. He grinned, envisioning how soon the Creek would be nothing but a footnote in his empire's history, a warning to any who dared oppose Zorgan supremacy. Just as Zarthan was about to accept a glass of Mimoni wine, his censor officer broke in. "Your Excellency, we've detected a new contact arriving on the battlefield. It's marked with symbols and an electronic signature we don't recognize." Zarthan turned back to the main display, forgetting his wine. Dropping out of warp was a colossal dreadnought, dwarfing his largest ships, bristling with guns as if it were an entire fleet in itself. "What on earth is that?" Zarthan muttered. "Open communications immediately." The comm officer responded quickly, and a voice came through, "This is Captain Jason Reeves of the United Earth ship Defiant. Attacking the Creek was a mistake. Now let's see how you like fighting an opponent who can strike back." Without another word, Reeves' ship unleashed its full arsenal on the nearest Zonian frigate, missiles, mass drivers, and beam weapons all converging on their target. The frigate's shields failed almost instantly, and the hull crumbled under the assault. Zarthan's expression turned to horror as he watched the human ship slice through his fleet, its weapons cleaving through his prized armada like a knife through flesh. Zonian shields, the result of decades of innovation, barely withstood even a single hit. The Emperor leapt from his throne, storming over to the gunnery crew and barking, "Focus all forward lances on that human monstrosity, now." As his ships reoriented to face the new threat, a sense of dread washed over him. He realized he had gravely underestimated these humans. They were far more formidable than he'd imagined. His empire had finally met a foe who could match its might. Captain Jason Reeves stood on the bridge of the Defiant, arms clasped behind his back, brow furrowed as he studied the main screen. The chaotic battlefield swirled with ships in fierce combat, their hulls flaring and exploding with every exchange. The Creek fleet was in a desperate state, formations in tatters and ships disappearing one by one. "Status report." Jason barked. His first officer glanced at her terminal and replied, "The Zonians are intensifying their assault. The Creek have lost about 70% of their fleet. They won't hold out much longer at this rate." Jason nodded grimly. When Earth first received the faint distress call from the embattled Creek, the Terran High Command had debated fiercely about whether to intervene. Humanity was still new to the intergalactic stage, and many in the command felt it unwise to involve themselves in an alien war. But Jason had advocated forcefully for intervention. He saw the strategic importance of the Creek, a trade-focused society with colonies and mining outposts spread across the region. Additionally, they shared a border with Earth's fledgling colony in the Oort cloud. If the expansionist Zonian Empire destroyed the Creek and took their territory, Earth's own colonies would be at risk. His arguments had won out, and the Defiant was dispatched at full speed to the Creek system, arriving just as the Zonians began their assault. Now, seeing the Zonian fleet break apart under his guns, Jason allowed himself a quick, satisfied smile. Sending the Defiant had been the right choice. The ship was Earth's most advanced dreadnought, a sleek and deadly vessel that outclassed anything else in the fray. Its triple-armored hull easily deflected the few laser blasts that connected, while its own weaponry, quantum phase cannons and neutron torpedoes, tore through Zonian shields as if they were paper. "Captain, the Zonian flagship is changing course and heading straight for us," the sensor officer reported. Jason leaned forward in his chair. It seemed the Zonian commander had realized that the humans posed the real threat and was moving to eliminate the Defiant. "Helm, turn to face them but keep moving. Don't let them get a clear shot," Jason ordered. The mighty dreadnought turned, its prow now aimed at the approaching Zonian warship, while its guns continued pounding the enemy fleet. Jason pressed a button on his armrest to speak to his weapons officer. "Sarah, I need the neutron cannons ready for a full volley. Divert power from the auxiliary shield array if necessary. Once that ship's in range, we're going to hit it hard." "Aye, sir," replied Lieutenant Commander Thompson, fingers flying over the controls. As the Zonian flagship neared, damaged and trailing fire, the bridge grew tense. The Zonian ship, nearly twice the size of the Defiant, began launching yellow energy bolts as soon as it entered extreme range. The Defiant's shields flared but held, barely flickering. A deep hum filled the ship as the neutron cannons powered up, drawing energy from the reactors to charge their magnetic coils. Jason watched the range indicator on the holographic display, waiting as the Zonian ship closed in. His grip tightened on the armrests as the target moved into the optimal firing range. "Almost there," he murmured. "Fire." A brilliant blue-white beam blasted from the forward gunports of the Defiance, striking the Zorgan flagship directly. The alien ship's shields flared briefly, struggling to withstand the neutron stream for a moment before failing dramatically. The beam tore straight through the center of the massive ship, vaporizing armor, decks, and crew alike, exiting the far side in a spray of molten metal. For a few seconds, the two halves of the dismembered warship hung motionless in space before a series of internal explosions shattered them further, scattering debris across the void. Cheers erupted on the Defiance's bridge as the Zorgan flagship disintegrated, but Captain Jason quickly silenced any early celebration with a sharp hand gesture. They may have decapitated the enemy command, but the rest of the Zorgan fleet was still a serious threat, and Earth had no reinforcements within range. Switching to the fleet communication channel, he commanded, "This is Captain Reeves to all Kree ships. Form up on the Defiance and hold a defensive sphere formation. Damaged Kree cruisers and frigates, trailing atmosphere from breached hulls, maneuvered to form a tight cluster around the human dreadnought, creating a united defense. The Kree ships could shelter behind the Defiance's shields, adding their remaining firepower to reinforce its strength." Jason turned to Sarah, his expression steely, the same look that had carried him through countless battles and earned him his command. "Tactical, align firing solutions with the Kree. Let's chip away at the Zorgan fleet and force them to retreat. Relay targeting data and optimal attack vectors." Sarah, already coordinating with Kree officers through her console, acknowledged his order with a quick nod. Settling back into his chair, Jason observed the Zorgan fleet regrouping for another assault, wounded but unbroken. Despite losing their flagship, the Zorgan forces still outnumbered the patchwork human-Krayt defensive line. This would be a brutal exchange of blows until one side could no longer continue. And in long, bloody space battles, humans had the resolve to see it through. The Defiance would lead the way, making the Zorgan pay in blood for every inch of space. Meanwhile, Captain Kazal gripped the armrests of his command chair as another round of plasma torpedoes rocked his damaged cruiser. Smoke poured from ruptured conduits, and the lights flickered ominously. Coughing, he peered through the smoke at the view screen, which showed only the twisted wreckage of Krayt ships, once proud vessels now reduced to drifting hulks under the relentless Zorgan assault. Kazal grimly realized this was the end. They had fought valiantly, but the Zorgan fleet was too powerful. Armed with weapons that sliced through Krayt shields like a hot knife through butter, the Zorgan had demolished the Krayt forces one ship at a time, their vessels becoming brief, blazing stars before fading forever. Kazal's cruiser, with its depleted weapons and failing engines, would soon join them. Suddenly, his sensor officer shouted over the sounds of groaning metal and venting atmosphere, "Sir, new contact dropping out of warp, it's massive." Kazal turned, expecting another Zorgan behemoth. Instead, he saw a ship unlike any he'd ever encountered. Sleek and predatory, all sharp angles and bristling with gun batteries, the newcomer dwarfed even the largest Zorgan ships. As Kazal watched in awe, the mysterious ship opened fire, searing beams of light cutting through Zorgan hulls like paper. Even the mighty Zorgan warships that had shrugged off the Krayt's best attacks crumpled and exploded under the newcomer's assault. It was as if a child were smashing toy ships. Incoming transmission from the unknown vessel, the communications officer reported shakily. Kazal nodded for her to put it through. A human face appeared on the screen, a man with sharp features and blazing eyes. "This is Captain Jason Reeves of the United Earth ship Defiance," the man said calmly. "We stand with the Krayt against Zorgan aggression. All ships, form up on us, we'll take the lead." Kazal's jaw dropped. Humans. He'd heard the stories, of a young race, new to the galaxy, but with technology far beyond the Krayt. Kazal had dismissed these tales as exaggerations, but now, watching the Defiance in action, he realized how wrong he'd been. The human ship moved with deadly precision. Striking between Zorgan ships like a dancer, its weapons slicing through the enemy fleet with surgical precision, leaving only wreckage in its wake. Watching the human crew on the comm link, Kazal marveled at their focus and discipline. They operated with a calm confidence that spoke of rigorous training and battle hardiness, no panic, no hesitation, only steely determination. Shaking off his astonishment, Kazal ordered his helmsman, "Take us into tight formation with the Defiance. Match their maneuvers and reinforce their firepower with ours." His cruiser surged forward to join the humans' defensive perimeter, with other Krayt ships rallying around the unexpected ally. Kazal continued to watch in amazement as Captain Reeves coordinated the combined human and Krayt forces. His orders were precise, his tactics ingenious. Using the Defiance as a shield, he absorbed the heaviest Zorgan fire, while the Krayt ships darted out to attack the enemy flanks. The tide of battle began to turn. The Zorgan advance slowed, then stalled, faced with a united front of human and Krayt forces. For the first time since a Zonian torpedo struck, Kazal felt a flicker of hope. As he observed the chaos of battle, he realized that with the humans fighting alongside them, they might achieve more than mere survival, they could potentially win. He glanced at Captain Jason Reeves, whose calm demeanor stood out even amidst the turmoil. Kazal silently thanked the gods, his ancestors, and any cosmic forces that might be listening for the day the humans chose to ally with the Krayts in battle. Gripping the armrests of his chair tightly, he refocused on the conflict ahead. The Zonians had initiated this war, but now, with the human alliance, the Krayts were ready to finish it. Meanwhile, Emperor Zarthan paced furiously across the bridge of his flagship, the Zorgan Fist of Conquest. His clawed feet dug into the metallic flooring with each angry step, mirroring the rage that boiled within him. This invasion was meant to be his greatest achievement, the culmination of years of careful planning and strategy. He had envisioned the CA crumbling before his formidable armada. Their worlds and resources ripe for the taking. However, everything changed with the arrival of the humans. As he watched another battleship succumb to a nuclear explosion, Zarthan realized his once mighty fleet, the most powerful ever assembled by the Zonian Empire, was being dismantled ship by ship, primarily due to the relentless fire from the lone human dreadnought. One of Zarthan's tactical officers, a timid little lizard whose name he had never bothered to learn, pleaded for a retreat. The officer reported that their shields were down to 12% and that catastrophic damage had occurred on several decks. Zarthan's fury intensified at the thought of retreating before what he considered inferior beings. The officer quaked under Zarthan's glare but pressed on, warning that if they did not regroup, the entire fleet would be lost. For a brief moment, Zarthan's hand drifted towards the blaster at his hip, contemplating silencing the coward. However, he knew he needed every claw at their station to turn the tide of battle. As the Emperor of the Zorgan and the Master of the Galaxy's greatest empire, Zarthan refused to cower at the first sign of resistance. He barked orders to the helmsman, directing the ship toward the human vessel. The crew exchanged worried glances but complied with his commands. Slowly, the fist of conquest swung its prow toward the UES Defiant. As the ship's thrusters ignited, propelling them into the line of fire from the human guns, the tension in the air was palpable. When the communications officer reported that the human ship was hailing them, Zarthan snapped in anger, dismissing the transmission. He had no desire to engage in conversation with the mammals. Instead, he leaned forward in his command throne, claws digging into the armrests as he focused intently on the view screen. The Defiant loomed larger, its sleek design a stark contrast to the bulkiness of the Zonian vessels. Zarthan's heart raced as the distance between them closed. This was the moment he had been waiting for, a chance to demonstrate the folly of challenging the Zonian Empire. He was determined to crush the humans, even if it meant sacrificing his last ship and his final breath, target their bridge. Zarthan growled, filled with resolve. He wanted to see the human captain's face as he sent him to oblivion. The gunnery crews sprang into action, aiming the remaining operable turrets of the Fist of Conquest at the Defiant's command tower. The human ship's shields shimmered as they absorbed the barrage of laser fire, but the Defiant was not content to remain on the defensive. It retaliated with a devastating strike on the Zonian flagship. The impact threw Zarthan from his throne as the entire ship shook violently. Alarms blared throughout the bridge, and the acrid smell of burning insulation filled the air. Hull breach on decks 4 and 5. Someone shouted over the chaos. The grim reality of their situation struck Zarthan hard. They were losing atmosphere, and chaos reigned. Despite the turmoil, he struggled to his feet, bracing himself against his command console. Through the smoke and sparks, he caught sight of the Defiant maneuvering to present its broadside, preparing for a decisive strike. This was the end for the Fist of Conquest, but Zarthan would not close his eyes or look away from his fate. He was Zarthan, Emperor of the Zonians, and he would face his end with the same iron will that had propelled him through countless conquests for the Empire. He roared defiantly, his voice rising above the din. The Defiant unleashed a full salvo from its main batteries just as another explosion rocked the Zonian ship. Zarthan felt the deck buck beneath him, and chaos erupted around him as the bridge crew was tossed about like rag dolls, consoles exploding in showers of sparks. Then, everything vanished in a blinding white light as the world around Zarthan was consumed by fire. The story concluded with a sense of finality and destruction, accompanied by an invitation for readers to engage with the channel. The narrator expressed gratitude to the audience, encouraging them to like and subscribe, and promised to heart every comment that expressed appreciation for the story. In the aftermath of the fierce battle, as the remnants of Zarthan's ship smoldered in the cold void of space, Kazal stood among the survivors of the Kreks and the humans. The overwhelming sense of loss was palpable, yet within that sorrow, a flicker of hope ignited. Realizing that they had triumphed over the Zonian threat together, Kazal and his human allies understood that their combined strength was far greater than they had anticipated. Determined to solidify their alliance, Kazal called for a summit between the Kreks leaders and human representatives. In the Grand Hall of the Krex Council, the two factions gathered to discuss the future of their cooperation. They exchanged advanced technologies and military strategies, recognizing that unity was essential not only for defense but for the progress of their respective civilizations. The humans shared their knowledge of space travel and weaponry, while the Krex revealed their expertise in resource management and strategic planning. Together, they crafted a plan to ensure that the remnants of the Zonian forces would not pose a threat again. As Zarthan's reign crumbled, the Zonian Empire fell into disarray. The remaining Zonian forces were in disarray, their morale shattered by the loss of their emperor and the devastating defeat. Many sought new leadership, but none could replicate the fierce ambition of Zarthan. Khazal took this opportunity to propose a truce, offering the Zonians a chance to surrender peacefully and join the new coalition, rather than face further annihilation. Some factions were reluctant, but the promise of stability and cooperation with the Krex and humans proved persuasive. Khazal emerged as a symbol of hope, embodying the spirit of unity that had led them to victory. Inspired by the bravery and resilience of the humans, he made it his mission to foster peace throughout the galaxy. He established diplomatic channels and began to engage in dialogues with other races, advocating for understanding and cooperation instead of conflict. His vision was to create a galaxy where differences were celebrated, and unity became the foundation for progress. As time passed, the alliance between the Krex and humans flourished. Joint missions were carried out to explore uncharted territories, and together they established trade routes that benefited both races. They shared cultural exchanges, learning from each other's histories and traditions, which deepened their bond. The once strained relationship transformed into a powerful partnership, proving that even in the face of adversity, collaboration could lead to unprecedented achievements. The future looked promising. Khazal and his human allies worked tirelessly to rebuild and fortify their defenses against any lingering Zonian threats. They fortified their territories, developed new technologies, and trained together in military exercises, ensuring that they were prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. In doing so, they created a formidable force that would be ready to defend peace in the galaxy. As they looked to the stars, Khazal and the humans envisioned a galaxy where all beings could coexist in harmony. The lessons learned from their struggles forged a new path for the Krex and humans, one built on respect, trust, and shared goals. Their union stood as a beacon of hope for all species in the galaxy, demonstrating that through unity and collaboration, they could overcome even the darkest of times and shape a brighter future for generations to come.